Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Kindred Souls of Brooklyn. And this is actually a movie called Meet Joe Black, which was filmed inside the Park Slope Armory, or some people call the Regiment, on 15th Street. And before it became a shelter, as it is now, and partially a gym, they made a lot of movies in there, and this was one of the movies that they made in there. But Meet Joe Black was very interesting, and you wouldn't believe that this would have anything to do with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. But I have an interesting story to tell you about it, and so please tune in. Hope you enjoy it. Now you might say to yourself, Al, what are you talking about? What could Meet Joe Black and Park Slope and the Armory have to do with The Phantom Menace? Well, very interestingly enough, Meet Joe Black was the first movie which showed the trailer for The Phantom Menace, Episode 1 of Star Wars. And I remember me, Matt, and Carrie sitting in the Pavilion Theater, which was originally the Sanders, which is now another theater. Can't recall the name right now. But I remember a whole bunch of people showing up to see this movie, Meet Joe Black. And the place was actually full, jam-packed. And it wasn't like it was like a Wednesday showing. And what it turned out to be was that it was all Star Wars fans. And I consider myself a Star Wars fan. It was people who knew that they were going to show the trailer for Star Wars. And when the trailer for Star Wars ended, about 40 or 50 people just got up and left the theater. And it was just really an interesting sight to see. I hadn't seen that since we had gone to see Blazing Saddles back in 1974, and a bunch of people left the theater for other reasons. But that's a fun fact that a lot of people don't know about Star Wars and Meet Joe Black and Park Slope, and how it ties into an interesting history together. Now, today, in today's world, it's with Disney Plus, it's probably hard to imagine the Star Wars desert that we felt back in 1998. And, you say, well, I mean, look at what's going on now. You have things like The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka coming out, and Rebels, and it goes on and on and on with the amount of Star Wars material we have. Now, of course, back in those days, you had the comic books, but people wanted more than comic books. You think about from 1977, or rather, I'm sorry, from the last Star Wars movie, which was Return of the Jedi, which was made in 1983. You had a long period from 83 to 98 where it was just simply nothing of anything Star Wars. I mean, we heard rumors of things, as my friend likes to say, it was kind of like Star Wars rumors were kind of like Bigfoot. I mean, you heard lots of things about them, but, you never saw them. And finally, Star Wars was coming out. So you could certainly understand why people would go to see Meet Joe Black and would really enjoy just, paying money to see this, because you didn't really have YouTube the way it is today. You didn't have streaming the way it is today. And you could really understand why people would do that. So I thought that made a really interesting story with Star Wars and Park Slope and Meet Joe Black, how it just all kind of correlated together. And, just some funny stories on Joe Black, too, just from people who live in Park Slope, who might still be listening and tuning into this. Meet Joe Black was apparently one of the more difficult things to film. I mean, they filmed it in a lot of places, but basically, if you look at the movie, the end scene was filmed. It's hard to imagine inside the Armory. It's a very, very big building. And in fact, it's so big that, how big is it, right? They actually put the Thanksgiving Day balloons in there. They stored them in there for Thanksgiving, the Macy's balloons, I mean. That's how big the place is. I mean, this was an armory. It's cavernous, so it's a very large interior. And I don't think I'll be able to show you anything here on that, but I'm just showing you this desert. I probably should show you inside the armory. So let me see if I can find some footage on. Okay, so this is some footage inside the armory now. Again, this is a very, very big structure. It was designed to hold, a garrison, I guess. And this is where the Meet Joe Black was actually filmed. They made a sound stage in here. They did the end scene. They actually did the pool scene, if you've seen the movie. So there's just a little bit of the armory from the inside, and that's really a tremendous building. So you can kind of get the idea. You can see how high that goes up of how big of a thing you're dealing with. But the funny part about Meet Joe Black was that apparently the filming was very difficult. Now, I don't remember hearing too much about this in the store. I mean, we had the neighborhood store, so we heard all the cool gossip and stuff. But apparently, a lot of the neighbors around there, which was like 15th Street, 14th Street, they were complaining about how much of a disruption the filming was. And apparently, the people who were making Joe Black, I think it was Universal, or I think that was one of the companies. They actually gave out air conditioners to the people in Brooklyn, the residents, to as like a peace offering, because the people were kind of complaining and threatening to on about suing or doing whatever or protesting the release of the movie or something. So, who knows? But I remember a lot of movies being filmed in New York and Brooklyn, and never really remembered anything happening like that. But it's kind of interesting story. So I'll put up some pictures here of the Armory from the outside. This, of course, is Prospect Park. So if anybody ever goes to Brooklyn, or you're watching, of course, from someplace else, but I imagine a lot of people watching this might be from Park Slope or whatever, but this is beautiful Prospect Park, and I'll put up some pictures here of the Armory, which is actually 1 block or so from Prospect Park, depending on where you are, of course. So the Armory is like 15th Street and 8th Avenue. So once again, thanks for tuning in. Some turtles, lots of wildlife. So you're seeing here the Armory. You got the Doughboy outside, and from World War One. It's a historic building. Another fun fact about the Armory is that there's a tunnel in the Armory that actually leads right to Prospect Park. And I guess that was something that was designed, when they had the garrison in there. It might have been maybe a way of coming into Prospect Park, because, of course, lots of the Revolutionary War were fought with George Washington and the British around this area. So maybe they were thinking someday they might need that again to come up as a full little surprise. So thanks for tuning into this episode about Meet Joe Black and Star Wars. I know it's a really crazy correlation, and the Park Slope Armory, but I thought it was interesting. There's a lot of little stories that don't get told, and a lot of things that you find out. And I had just rewatched Meet Joe Black, and as I'm watching it and thinking about, okay, this was filmed here and this was filmed here, my mind actually went back 25 years and just thinking about that. And I said, wow, so that story just actually came to mind. And I don't think I've ever really read that anywhere about, and then I researched it, of course, just to confirm it. But yeah, it is true that Meet Joe Black was the first movie put out that showed that Star Wars trailer. So I'd imagine all over the country, you folks might have similar stories to that if you think back to seeing that movie, and of course being Star Wars fans. So anyway, I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video. This is Al signing off. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.